Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Pastor Kevin Thorpe, Senior Pastor of the Faith Church. I want to welcome you to this wonderful Wednesday night experience. Let me encourage you to like and to share. Pass this along to folks in your social media circle that you feel could benefit from tonight's discussion. I want to break from the series that we've been in and share something with you that has really been on my heart. Recently, I was able to watch a video interview that was produced by a dear friend of mine. We literally grew up right next door to each other. She is an accomplished author. Her name is Siobhan Carter. She was doing an interview with another friend of hers, and her name is Patrice Salmon. They were talking about surviving infidelity, life after divorce. And I was so impacted by that interview and the blog that they did that I wanted to share it with our viewing audience. And for us, this is going to be a part of a 3-week series. We'll share that interview tonight, and stay tuned to the end of the interview because there were some follow-up questions that I had for Miss Salmon, and she was so kind to record a special video just to answer my follow-up questions. And then for the next 2 Wednesdays after this week, we also want to share our most popular series from social media. It was entitled Building Better Relationships. And I want to reiterate the importance of how we can invest in our most prized possession, and that is our relationships, our families, our children, and those that we are connected to. So I encourage you again, like, share, comment, ask questions. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll be addressing the subject of relationships. Tonight's message will deal with an interview with Siobhan Carter and Patrice Salmon. And again, stay tuned to the end of the interview, and there will be some follow-up questions that I had for Patrice that she was kind enough to record a separate video to answer. And then the following 2 weeks, we'll be sharing our most popular series entitled Building Better Relationships. And we'll go through several segments of how to do that. All right, let's spend this great time sharing in the Word together.
Okay, so my clock says 8:01, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome to another episode of Relationship Talks. I am your host, Siobhan Carter, the You Relationship Coach. And what that means is I am passionate about all things concerning relationships, especially the relationship that you have with yourself. And tonight, I have the pleasure of being joined by a special guest who is no stranger to this platform, my good girlfriend, Patrice Salmon. Hey, girl. Hey.
Thank you for inviting me to join again. I don't think I'm guest anymore.
I know, right? You're just family at this point.
At this point, yes.
Exactly. So for those who are just now tuning in and may not be familiar with who you are, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Patrice. I am the Patrice. So I'm a blogger. I started a blog about less than a year ago, and my platform is really to encourage people to keep it moving after hardships. Specifically, I started talking about life after divorce. So I have an IG page. I now have a Facebook page, and it's I am the Patrice. So please follow me, interact with me. I mostly try to focus on relationship topics, but I have evolved into just sharing holistically other things, my fitness journey, being a single mom. So I would love to have you follow me on my page.
Yes. And we have some wonderful people tuning in. I see Mama Pam. Hey, Monica Johnson. Hey, Willette has chimed in. So hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And we want this to be an interactive discussion. So please comment, share your questions and just your own life experiences as we're talking about about this subject tonight because we want to hear from you. It's not just about us. We want to hear from you. So before we get deep into the conversation, why are we talking about overcoming the pain of infidelity? So I just want to set it up because that has been a topic. If you have been on social media over the past couple of weeks, you have heard about, the Derek Jackson situation and all that's going on with him and his wife and the videos that they've been making. And we hear about stories of infidelity all the time, but we never really delve into what that experience is really like. All we hear about, girl, just leave him. You should not be with him. But we want to dive into what it's really like to experience infidelity and what it does to us. So if you are a man who's watching this, we're going to be coming from the women's perspective tonight. But feel free to chime in. But we really want you all to feel and hear what the experience is like. And this is an experience that both Patrice and I are very familiar with because we have gone through this in our marriages, and we're both now divorced, but we've learned so much as a result of this situation. So before we even get into the conversation, we want to say that this is not an opportunity to bash anybody. We're not trying to put our ex-husbands down or anything like that, because that's not the point. We have evolved, we have moved on, and we're in a really good space about this, but we really think it's important to have this conversation. So I gave all my preliminaries, so that's why we're talking about
that was a good one, boo. You're right. Thank you. It's not about that. No,
it's not about bashing, because a lot of times when we have this conversation, people think, oh, he did this and he did that, but that is not the point. We really want to focus on ourselves and the one as the woman tonight. So
yes,
that's why we're having this conversation. So, so let's get into it. Let's talk about infidelity. So, and I'll use myself as an example to set it up as a scenario. So let's say, I was married for about how long was I married for? I don't even know. Probably about 2-3 years, maybe about 3 years at the time when I found out that my ex-husband was cheating. And how it happened was I received a message on Instagram, the beauty of social media, received a message on Instagram, and just things unraveled from there. I won't go into the details, but that's how I found out on Instagram. So just imagine me thinking that things are going well. It probably wasn't going extremely well, but I just wasn't aware of that situation. And then here I am with this phone in my hand, having this information uncovered and exposed. And it's like, what in the world? So let's talk about the pain of infidelity. What does it feel like when you find out that your partner has been unfaithful?
Well, for me, my story is a little similar. I think I saw it on the iPad, or a computer was open, and I saw emails. And so for me, like, I was confused, shocked, numb, and I just, it's just a flood of emotions because you don't expect it, right? I mean, you may have issues. Everybody have issues in their relationship, but it's like, what in the world is going on? And you almost kind of like this can't be real. And so, that was my experience. And then, as time went and I find out more information, I'm like, when and how and why? Like, how did I miss this? What did I miss? What did I not see? So, the initial of it is just shock. It's like just shock. And then after the shock wear off, it's just this feeling of your heart just shattered, because you don't really know what to expect next. And it's like, why this girl? Are there more girls? When did you? It's just a whole bunch of questions, It's
like a Pandora's box.
It is
so many things that you never even imagine. I know for myself, I didn't even see it coming. Some people, when I look back on it now, I can see the signs, but when I was in it, it's like I had no idea that was going on. So I can understand what you're saying. Just like, wait, what? Are you serious? It's like,
when and how and when did me and the kid just, and then as the story unraveled, child, you know how it gets worse and worse and worse. And I feel like it seemed like stuff just started dropping. You just start getting all of this information.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, we could write a whole book on it.
I'm telling you, I did write a whole book about it because it was so.
You don't need the right mind.
You need the right choice, right? Because it was so much. So much to experience. So that's what it feels like. It's the initial shock, like you said, is probably a sense of denial because you want to believe that that's what's happening, right?
Yes.
Ooh, child. So let's talk about where we go in our minds, where a woman goes in her mind when she finds out that her spouse has been or her partner has been unfaithful. What kind of things came up for you? What did you think about yourself? Not necessarily about the guy, because we can talk about all kind of stuff about him, but since we're focusing on us tonight, what kind of thoughts goes through a woman's mind about herself after she's found out that her partner has cheated?
So it's like, who, why her? Was it something wrong about me? Is she, and for me, I'm a thicker girl. So it's always this comparison, like, okay, well, she's smaller. Is she doing other stuff that I maybe didn't do in the bedroom? Or, what is it about this woman that you like more than me? Is she better than me? Does she do certain things better than me? And so what I had evolved and come to realize, because that's not the only time I've experienced infidelity, because we'll get to that. You experience it outside of being married as well. More often than not, it's really not about the other woman being better than you. And then, I hate this comparison thing, but girls are catty. And so, you start racking and stacking when you really finding out the details of this chick. And it's like, this chick ain't better than me. How you going from sugar to that? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But what I've come to realize as I've matured, and that experience taught me, more or often than not, for them, it's either a deficiency in the man or a deficiency in the relationship that they go seeking, for a void to fill. It could be an insecurity. It could be a lack of communication, with your wife. And then you open one little window, and then before you know it, it has bubbled out of control. So I don't even think all the time that it's intended, because, I know my husband loved me. It's just, stuff happens and then you lose control over it. So it's not always about the other woman being better than you. Just not.
It's really not. And I want to touch on some of the comments that are y'all are so funny. So Tommy says, typically we blame ourselves and look at what we perceive as our shortcomings. So we go inward, and that's why I want to talk about that. Like, I really want to lift up some of the thoughts, the internal process that we have to go through, because when we're talking about overcoming the pain, we got to start from the beginning. Let's start from when it happened, and then how we felt, and then we're going to walk you through the rest of the process, because this stuff is real, right?
Very. And then it brings up all the insecurities that you've had, and it triggers you in a deep way from wounds that you've had since you were a child. So then we start making up all of these things that are not true, instead of really focusing on what actually happened and stuff like that. So
Malcolm is so silly. He's so well, let's talk about men are just stupid. We're gonna touch on that with that from a different perspective, because we are not here to bash them.
We're not doing that tonight,
we're not doing that. We're gonna bring a man on and get their perspective.
That would be super dope. That would be dope.
Yeah, because I do want to hear the other side of it, but that's not our topic tonight. But and so Paula says they usually cheat down.
Yes, I think on the surface that's what it appears, right? But I hate that whole comparison thing, because in my mind, every woman is beautiful. Every woman has something awesome to bring to the table. But that part of you be like, now you like, really? But Yeah.
And the beautiful thing, like when I talked about we're not bashing men, I did have a conversation with my ex-husband, and we are really in a really good space, with each other. And so it's one of those things where we had and I talked about this on a previous live, how we had an actual conversation that we could go back and really touch on what happened, what space that we were in, and just being able to hear the space that he was in, like emotionally and mentally. I understand how he ended up making the choices that he did. Like, I get it. It sounds really weird, but I totally understand. I get it. So it's so many nuances that can be involved in a relationship that I don't think we can just put it in a box and say, oh, it's because of this or that, because you just don't know what is leading to making those decisions.
So if I could piggyback on that, so like for me, in the turmoil and the demise of it all, I just remember crying, like, why is this happening to me? Like, why? And I just heard a still voice, probably God, said, this is what you asked for.
Yeah.
So let me touch on that. So when we would get into arguments and have our heated debates, I'd be like, I don't need you. I could, when you leaving, you want to split up. And I had been saying that for years. And I even remember when, after I had our oldest son, I had a lot going on. And even looking back, I really think that I was going through postpartum depression a little bit, but I was, I had just got a promotion at my job. I just had the baby. And he was doing all that he could. He really was, like, really was. And looking back, I just was so mean to him. And I'm saying all of that to say, I had to own my part.
Yeah,
I had to own my part into what could have potentially. Now, I'm not taking away the fact that his behavior was inappropriate, but in these situations, you have to answer for you. And so for me, I had to look up and be like, you know what, child, if I was him, I probably would have went with somebody else too. And even and this is off a little bit, but I was dating someone after I got divorced, and I needed that experience. It was so eye-opening because he was treating me like how I treated my husband.
Wow.
Emotionally cold and dismissive at times, to the point where I thought about cheating on him. And I was like, this is how my ex-husband felt. And so from there, I had to really check myself, because at this point we're done. And going forward, I want to have healthy relationships. I want to be in a healthy relationship again. And that behavior is just unacceptable. If you keep telling somebody that they're ugly over and over again, they're going to believe it. So he's like, oh, you don't want me to be here? I'm going to do one better and I'm going to leave. And
it's getting me so excited, because this is the type of conversation that we need to have, right? Because when you said ownership, it is so easy for us to be like, he did this to me, I did that, and blame on him. And we are not excusing any actions. We're not saying that we should put all the blame on us. However, when there is a breakdown in a relationship, we gotta be able to look at ourselves and say, what part did I play in the breakdown of the relationship? Not the choice, but the breakdown of the relationship. And so I really want us to get that. And it a lot of women may give us some pushback on this, and I get it, I understand, but I think that's the point. Like, we gotta be willing to look in the mirror and look at the part that we play.
But the issue is, once the cheating occurs, that becomes the focus, unfortunately. It becomes the focus, unfortunately, first. And then after that, it's about, okay, you start addressing the behaviors and why things happen. Because truthfully, he could have communicated some stuff to me. Maybe he tried. I don't know. I wasn't in a space to really receive what he was saying. But I had to own me. I had to own me and my part and my mouth and my disrespect.
Come on.
I did. I have to. And I still own it to this day. I've apologized to him. It's too late at this point. But wherever I'm sorry. I've apologized. We're in a good space now.
Yeah. And that's so true. And my breakdown was one, I was looking for him to be my savior. When I got into that marriage, I was not in it for love.
That's good. Yep.
I needed him to save me from myself. I didn't feel good about me. He made me feel good about me. And so here go my husband. And I was on a real strict agenda. I needed to be married by a certain time. It was an object that, I use for that purpose. That's what I own. And so when I come into a marriage like that, how are we going to have a healthy foundation?
Yeah. Yep. It's bound to break down at some point.
To break down.
Yeah.
And I had respect issues. I had pride issues. So it's like,
but that's a whole nother topic, because they be like, oh, you gotta respect your husband. Child, what that mean? Like, can you give me a definition? What it look like? I've never really seen it before. So I know what it look like now, but then you have to respect your husband. What can you give me a step-by-step tutorial? Because I got him out. Like, and if he ain't doing something right, I'm gonna tell him. I mean, whatever.
Listen.
I learned my lesson.
Honey, it's like I think, who said it? I think somebody said, like, a lot of times. So Willette said something earlier. She said a lot of times we are young, immature, and don't appreciate what we have, right? And I think that's so true. Like, when I think about it now, me and him, we were in such a broken space.
Yeah.
We didn't know who we were as individuals.
Right.
We had a friendship. We knew that we had fun together, and we knew each other for a long time, but we didn't know who we were individually. So, wow, how was it gonna? Work? So
yeah. I get it. Yes.
Right. Okay. So we talk about owning it. We talk about just really assessing, just looking at what contributed to the breakdown on our end. Not taking the full blame of the cheating. I really want to make that. But we're talking about the breakdown. So how do you process through the pain? Because we can do all of this owning and all this kind of stuff, but the pain ain't going nowhere. The fact of the matter is, a betrayal happened, cheating happened, it hurts like hell.
It does.
And now I have to deal with this. How do we deal with it?
Well, it's different for everybody. It took me a while. It took me a long time, because not only did I have to deal with myself, I had to deal with my son, my children. And so a lot of prayer, a lot of therapy. And I know people like, oh, we like to over spiritualize. Listen, the demise of my divorce, real talk, was the worst time of my life, but it was also the best time of my life. It brought me to a place of self-evaluation, self-reflection. It was almost like it had to happen. I'm a better woman. I know this sounds ridiculous. I'm a better woman for it. And I've learned, I learned my strengths, my weaknesses, more about my insecurities. I mean, I'm still evolving and, peeling onions and, layers back of who I am and some of my past pain and hurt. But it just took me a while. I had to really, and also I had to accept, like I was meeting with this married couple, and they told me something profound that really changed my perspective on everything, because I'm like, why he not doing this and why he not doing that? But the bottom line, we were done. And they said, and they gave me the definition of peace. They say peace is accepting things for what they are versus what you want them to be. So we have this visual of what we want it to be. So we chasing our tail on what we think it should be, but that ain't what it is. So once you're able to accept it, sit in it, then I think that's when the healing really, really starts, because it is what it is. Like, it happened. It happened. You can't change the past. So you either going to try to move forward, make things better, be better, see what you can do to make things different, or you just keep being stuck in this cycle.
I am telling you. And one of the things that you said, when you said it made you a better person, one of the things, and it sounds crazy, one of the things I used to say was, him leaving and him cheating was the best gift he could have given me.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so retarded. Like that sounds crazy, but it helped me to see myself. Like that situation helped me to get in tune with who I am and to be able to sit here and talk to people today confidently about who I am. And so it's real talk. Like there are jewels that can come out of it. We're not saying yes, go out and get cheated on. That's not what we're promoting.
We're not saying go get a divorce. Please stay with your husband if you can, child. Like please, y'all work it out. But in the event that the divorce, or even if you all decide to stay together, life it could be better. It could be because we listened to that TED talk you sent me, Siobhan, and the lady said it could be a new chapter and a new better beginning for your marriage. So there's life afterwards, and then even if something happens in the divorce, there's life after that. Like really, I know you see us on here looking fabulous,
honey. Listen, because look,
cool.
We came out better, baby. Okay. So I want to touch on this question because this is a valid question, because when we're talking about the pain, we're talking about not just ourselves, but people around us, our children, our family. So Darius says, do your children think or feel differently towards their father after he was unfaithful?
Well, they don't know because they're young. My babies are right now 6 and 9. Initially, DJ, he was a baby, and at first Parker wasn't even born, and then Parker came after the fact, and so Parker don't really know. All he knows is what he knows, right? But I think if anyone is impacted, it's my oldest, but he doesn't understand or know why mommy and daddy are not together anymore. He just know that, mommy and daddy don't live in the house anymore, and daddy's moved on, and so is mom. Yeah. So I'm sure my son will need some level of counseling because, I hope he's okay, but because it's like you can kind of start to feel a little bit abandonment by that. So I pray for him, but as outside of my kids, it impacted the whole family. It impacts his family. It impacts my family. We used to have stuff at our house all the time. Like it just was a whole ripple effect. That infidelity, it's not just with you and a person. It's everybody that's connected to you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So Willette says you all are talking about growth, learning from past lessons. Absolutely. That's why we're having this conversation, because it is a growth conversation. We want to talk about the pain and the reality of it. And we want to talk about overcoming, because it is possible for you to move through it, not, avoid the realities of what it is, but it is possible for you to move through it.
Because some people get so stuck in the story, and you describe it better than me, Siobhan. Like, people own that story. It's like their badge of honor, and they get so stuck in this period of time. And it's like there's so much more to life. Do the work that's needed to move on, so you really could thrive versus just surviving and being stuck on. I was cheated on. I mean, and another thing, infidelity comes. I know we're not talking about this, but infidelity. It's not always about cheating with another person. It could be hobbies. It could be work. It comes in so many forms. It's just, this is the one that we typically focus on the most.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so it's one of those things where we're talking about the pain of it. We're talking about, will it ever go away? That's what you were talking about when you were saying that we have it as a badge of honor. And I have said this before on this platform. I wore it as a badge of honor in a certain way for about 7 years until I had that conversation with my ex-husband, which was the beginning of this year. And so I'm not talking about something that I haven't walked through myself. So for 7 years, even after writing a book and all that stuff, it was levels to my healing, right? Because I acknowledged it. I recognized the part that I played, but there was still a little part of me that wanted to hold on to that victim and what had been done to me. And I really had to release that this year. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's just unlocked a whole lot more within me. And so that's also why we're talking about it, because when we hold on to that bitterness, that resentment, then we're keeping ourselves back from what is in store for us. So
yes, agreed.
Yeah. So, okay, we got a question that came in. If the parties are separated for more than a year and get into a new relationship, is it considered infidelity?
So if they're married, potentially. But it depends. I think it depends on the terms of the relationship, right? Because, all right, so in the state of Maryland, you have to be separated for a year, especially if you have kids, before you could actually file for a divorce. So that means no consensual sex, and you cannot be living together. Even if you're not living together and you have consensual sex, the timeline starts all over, right? So if you're separated and you all don't have any plans to get back together, I guess no. But if you all are separated and you like, hey, we just need some time apart, and you agree that you're not going to see other people, potentially, you that could be considered infidelity if that is the agreement, in my opinion.
Yeah. It just really depends on like you said, the terms of the relationship. And infidelity, when infidelity is involved, there's lying, there's betrayal, there's cheating of some, or not cheating, but just a deceit of some kind. So it's like, if that isn't involved in it, or if you're at the point where it doesn't matter what either of you are doing, then perhaps it's not, it's not the same thing. So,
no.
Yeah. So Paula asked a question. She said, how do we let it go?
So forgiveness, like you talked about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a personal journey, for everybody. And I've said this before on your platform, and I said on mine, I have a really close relationship with God. And I had to learn that forgiveness is not about the other person. So me forgiving you is not letting you off the hook. Me forgiving you is letting me off the hook and saying, you know what, this happened. I forgive you. And it frees me up to kind of let that hurt and that the bitterness go, so I could kind of move on and live a healthier life. So it takes time. But like you said, we want to hold this badge of honor. And I think sometimes when we keep a hold of that, it's almost like you want to keep this person victim or hostage for what they've done to you. And they've moved on. It's like they've moved on, got married, then been in multiple relationships and living their life. And you still over here mad and upset. So for me, I said I had two options. I either need to live my life the way I really, really want to live it, or I could stay in this place of what I call death. It's like a slow death of me not really living. And in order for me to do that, I had to forgive him. Like I don't like what you did, but in order for me to thrive and be happy and be a better mom and be a good mom and be a good person to myself, I had to forgive him for what he did.
Yeah.
And wait, hold on. And not only forgive him, forgive her. Because there's levels to the forgiveness. So I think it might have took me longer to forgive her than to forgive him, because it's like, baby, you knew about me. You know what I'm saying? And we have a family, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I had to forgive her too, because I don't know what her issues are. People do things for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Because they're broken or they slipped into a situation. So I don't know her, I don't really know what she's going through. And so I had to come to a place of realizing everybody got their own brokenness going on. And I don't really think people are just walking around intentionally wanting to hurt anybody. They're just not. They just getting themselves in situations and hurt people. So to help me let it go, I had to really, really work on forgiving him, forgiving myself for what I thought I did, forgive her, forgive whoever else played a part in it, and move on.
And you know what? So for me, like I said, it's been a 7-year journey, right? For me to finally get to the point of letting it go. It started with therapy. I had to figure out what in the world was going on with me, period. Like outside of the cheating and the infidelity, who am I? How did I end up in this situation?
Right.
And so that took some time to peel back those layers. That took some years. And then anytime I felt triggered, anytime I felt pain, I needed to talk about it. So I talked about it in therapy. I needed to write it out, and write out how I felt. And that led to me writing that book. And then, you know, I think getting to the point, like, I think what really helped me to release it was having a conversation with him and putting myself in his shoes.
Ooh, that's so
I
good.
remember when I was like really broken like that. I remember when I cheated. Shoot. So how am I going to put him on this bucket list, or this list of, oh, he did this to me? Well, I remember when I did that to somebody else. I remember when I was doing stuff that was dark and low. So when I put myself in that situation, what I'm gonna hold on to when I'm in the same boat as him? Just different circumstances.
Right.
I don't have anything to hold on to now. And so that's what really helped me to let it go, because I put myself in his shoes.
And it's not an overnight process.
Nope.
It is a journey. And the thing with therapy, like I went to therapy too. I feel like I'm getting feedback. You hear me?
I can't find.
Oh, okay. I went through. So I want to tell people this. Like, it took me a couple therapists before I found the right therapist for me. I think people go to therapy and they meet a person and they like, you keep searching till you find the right one. And I highly suggest a Christian trained therapist. I have nothing against ministers or but it is a different element. You need that psychology piece also with the Christian piece. It is so, you know, because they could flex both. And so that would be my suggestion. And I know you have the same thing. You have a Christian trained therapist. So
yeah, I need that. I need
the right one.
School for this. I need somebody like that.
Certification, honey.
The psychological aspect. I mean,
right,
great, but I need to push the spiritual to the side for a second and deal with what's going on in my mind, my emotions. Like I need that aspect of the clinical aspect of it.
Yeah,
I went through one therapist, and so it was my second therapist that I have settled on and still go to, because it's a journey. And so so even if you end up finding one that isn't a good fit for you, your mental health is so important, and you're so worth it to fight for what it is that you're looking for, and just find another one, you know.
Amen.
So,
yes,
absolutely. So let's talk about those people who may choose to stay after they have experienced being cheated on. How do you deal with the judgment and criticism if you choose to stay with the person who cheated?
So, I always thought that infidelity would be like a huge deal breaker for me. Like you know, and plus I just never pegged my husband to be that guy. I mean, you know, so I just figure I ain't never had that worry. I don't know. Must have I was exempt from it. Child living in this make-believe bubble that it couldn't happen, and that chicks wouldn't be thirsty after my husband. Let me tell you, let me when I get married again, I'm coming. Don't look at my husband. Don't talk to him. It's all bets off. It will. These press-on nails coming off, I'm fighting. Okay, it's too much hard work in relationships for people to be coming in. Or I'm gonna fight him too. Okay, so
wait. I just want to say something to that.
I'm fighting everybody.
I was in the same cloud that you were in, and it was a prideful cloud for me. I was like, but look at me. Look at me.
Yeah, like, and I wouldn't even be worried. Like, oh, nobody, my husband not gonna do nothing, girl. These chicks be coming after your man. I'm telling you. And they like them when they're with somebody. You know, they don't realize that they're looking all good. They look good by themselves, but they look better because they're with somebody. Don't give me stuff.
Right.
So I digress. But I'm telling you, when I get married again, it's all best. I'm telling you, friend, if I call you,
friend, I can't fight. I can't fight. I'm just.
I don't care about them clearances.
I know. I care. We gotta care.
We doing something. But anyway, I digress. So I was always the girl that, oh no, like my husband cheats, that is over. I'm done. And so we had a couple at our church, the Tatums. Hey y'all.
Hey.
And I'll never forget, William was like, so you just gonna let your husband go like that? Like you need to swallow your pride and try to get your husband. And I had never thought about it like that. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm being prideful. I'm like, that's just, you don't, your husband cheat.
Right.
It's over. It's
Right.
over.
Yeah.
But it helped me to really sit back. And I'm like, you know what? We've built a lot together. We have a child. Like, I mean, will I really throw away for a moment of time? Or like, I don't even know why he did what he did. And so now it shifted my perspective. I can't say that is not a deal breaker for me, but I don't know if I would just throw it away. So, like, even you talked about the Derek Jackson situation, and even Cardi B with Offset, when they were going through, you don't know what's going on in people's relationships, and I cringe when people are like, oh, you need to leave him alone. You need to leave him alone. First of all, you ain't leaving your man alone. That's number one.
First
and foremost, and number two, people go through stuff. You know, just imagine when you're getting married, you are signing up to be with somebody for the rest of your life. People evolve, stuff happens. So it has shifted my perspective. I can't say that if infidelity occurs, unless he's a serial cheater or she is a serial cheater, if it's worth it, you throwing away. So I would say, you know, I know it's humiliating and it's hurtful, but you have to really step back and look at the bigger picture and see if it's something that you all could work through.
Yeah.
That's my feedback on that.
And I remember when I was married and when I was going through this, I was still willing to work on it. Right.
Right.
And so he chose not to do the same. And so the marriage dissolved. But I remember that back in that time that I was willing to work on it. But I will say, my 43-year-old self, if I do get married again or get into a long-term relationship, I don't know emotionally if I would desire to stay afterwards.
Yeah.
Just understanding what it's like. And like you said, people cheat for different reasons, but the way I'm wired, I know where it takes my mind. And so it's not, I just don't desire to experience that again and to have to go through that again, just for me personally. Yeah.
And I think that's fair. That's fair, right? And that's your choice.
Right.
For somebody to be like, oh, Siobhan, you need to leave him. You need to leave him. I think that's where I'll be there. You should be there to support and encourage whatever the person decides that they want to do. But just to say, oh, you should leave your significant other or your spouse, shut up.
Yeah. And I love what Willette says. You gotta do what's best for you. It's nobody else's business. So if you choose to stay, that's your business. Like Tabitha Brown said, that's your business.
It's your business.
You know, and so you got to do what's best for you. And I think in those times, like if you and your significant other decides to stay together, you really got to block out all the noise.
You do.
So that you can focus on just you, because there's going to be so many words, so many influences that you gotta block it out so that y'all can focus on yourself.
And you already feeling insecure, you already feeling fragile. And I think people have good intentions, because you know, it's like, oh, you need to protect yourself. But you know, it's something you don't understand until you go through it, unfortunately.
Absolutely. You know, every relationship is different. Nobody's is the same. So even if you did go through a similar situation, it's still not the same. We have individual paths, and so you just can't say, oh, you should do this, because you don't know.
Right.
So Tommy says, my motto is, if you gonna stay, you can't say mean and hush your mouth, because everybody gonna have an opinion, and people don't or can't forgive like you.
This is bad.
Yeah, that's
true. Yeah. You know, but even still, you know, if you're my friend or a family member that I confided in, and that's and that's what you got to be careful who your support system is when you're going through. You need to know that those people who are surrounding you going to encourage you and uplift you with whatever decision that you decide to make, because the decision is yours, and won't try to force their opinion on you. They're there to support you. And if they understand that you know, this is my family, I want to, because you know, like I try to work to the bitter end. I really did, me personally, because I'm like, I'm looking at my son and I'm like, this is my family, you know. And it got to a point where I ain't care what nobody said. I couldn't care what anybody said, because this is my husband. I signed up to love him forever, to death do us part. So, and And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad because now I can look myself in the mirror and know that I did whatever I could do within my power to keep my marriage. I can look my children in the face and say, Mommy tried. And whenever I go to the pearly gates, God knows that I truly tried. And I think some people, they just walk away prematurely. And so it's not, it wasn't about, like, I got my children to answer to. I have God to answer to. So when I took my vows, people were there to support me, but I don't answer to them.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to really move in that posture, especially like me. I suffer with worrying about what other people had to say. So, that was a real struggle for me.
Yeah.
You have to, really, because the thing is, if you prematurely throw away your marriage based on what somebody else say, then their marriage fall apart and they still with their husband, and then you ain't with your husband, and then you now over there like, hey, I wish I'd have worked it out, so it's just so many levels to it.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I appreciate about our friend circle is that we never, I guess, down the other person. Like even to this day, I don't see him as anything less than a beautiful person. You know what I mean? And so I love that about our friendship circle, that we're not like, oh, he's this and he's that. No, he's just.
I wish you would take a little dose of that.
I know you do. That's my friend. Don't do my brother like that. So I just, I love that about our circle, that we don't down the other person. We understand that we're all imperfect beings, and so he just, made the decision that he made, but it doesn't define who he is. And so,
not at all.
Yeah. So. What words, I can't believe that we're almost at the end of the discussion. So what words of encouragement would you leave with women who have experienced infidelity and it led to divorce or breakup?
Okay, so as far as the first thing, I've touched on this a lot, is accepting that it happened. It happened. And for me, I think one of the hardest things was I had to create or imagine a new life for myself, because birthdays were going to be different, holidays were going to be different, vacations are different. So I had to really take some time to, like, what do I want my life to look like? What am I going to do now with me and my kids? Or, what do I want to do? So I encourage women, create a new life for yourself that you could look forward to. What is it going to look like? And that takes some time. Like, truthfully, I am still dealing with that, because I used to always spend like my holidays here. But then, now that I don't really have all my family here, and I always spent time with his family, now I got to go to my family and fly to my family and be with my family. And then birthdays are different. So the summers are different because we always had cookouts. So I've had to recreate a whole new life for me. We talked about therapy. We, touch on infidelity. And the thing is, I want to encourage you, there is a life after divorce. Like, it takes time. It takes, it's not an overnight process. It's been like 3 years since my divorce was final, but like almost really 5 years. And it's a process. It's a journey. It's not a sprint. And so those, if anything, I would say accept it, evolve, create a new life, therapy, and prayer. And keep moving forward. Keep moving. Even when times are rough, you may have a moment, but keep going. Like, keep going. Like, you keep going. It's gonna get better.
Yes. It definitely does.
It's always it has no choice. Like, if you you at the bottom of the pit, like, ain't nowhere else to go but up.
But up. That's it. That's all you got.
So that is my encouragement for people that, unfortunately. Oh, and can I add this? For people that has been divorced, and even breakups, like, this infidelity stuff don't stop.
It doesn't.
You're going to experience, if you choose to date afterwards, it may happen again. It may happen again. And so you have some tools in your equipment your toolbox to know how to deal with it. But I don't want you to think that, after this you exempt or cut yourself off from love and opening yourself to other possibilities for fear.
Yeah.
It could happen again.
There's a possibility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's not like, oh, I went through all of this healing and it will never happen. It's like you just can't control it.
You can't.
So what we're saying is live through it, and so make different choices. Okay, let me see. Maybe there are some things that I didn't pay attention to, but you're always evolving. You're always growing as you go through different relationship situations. And what Patrice is saying is you don't have to just give up. If your heart's desire is to be in a committed relationship or to be married again, you don't have to give up because of the relationship experiences that you've had in the past. They're teachers for you. So these people taught you lessons about relationships, about yourself. Okay, now what will you do with these lessons? How will you use that to move forward? So,
yes. Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
So why are you being like this today? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Put your Batman utility belt on. I mean, it's life. He's so crazy. It's life. And that's with my platform. God birthed it out of me to really share about life. Dating after divorce, and me getting back into dating. I mean, it's been a really interesting ride, because you will experience heartache again after divorce, all kind of stuff, because we're still living and we're still evolving.
And one of the beautiful things about what both of us have chosen to do with our experiences is using them for a greater good. So we could have just sat down and just like, woe is me, this is what happened, and be bitter about it and just put all men in a negative bucket. But what we've chosen to do instead is just to live through it and use it for the greater good, to help, to serve other people. We've used our story just to uplift as opposed to, tearing it down. And so that's another thing, like choose what you want to do with your relationship experiences. What do you want to do after finding out you've been cheated on? What do you want to do with that story? Because now you have a story. Who can help, with your story, by your story? So look at it from that perspective. So we're kind of glass half full today, but that's just how we choose to live life, and it's benefited us. So
and some of that stuff had to happen, child. Like it had to happen for you to dismiss. It had to happen.
Yeah. It was a humbling experience for me.
Yes, very.
I thought I had it all together. I thought I was going to be the one to show y'all how to do it. And honey, if you don't sit your little tail down.
It is a humbling experience to go through that. Even in your relationships and stuff. Even if you're not married, there are people that have been together for a long time, and it's hurtful, especially when you've had plans to, maybe spend the rest of your life with that person, and you're trying to build a life with that person. It's a crushing blow, especially it's just a crushing blow either way.
It is. So Kia, love it. Thank you, Kia, for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So Malcolm says emotions are everywhere after divorce, but that still means you have them, right? That shows that you're human. You are a human being. And you feel, right? So just need better awareness of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Siobhan, I hope that this has been helpful to people that watch and other people, because that's my intent. This is, my first time really talking about this. I've talked about dating.
Yeah.
But then when God put this in my heart to talk about this, I was like, what? So, this is my first time really publicly talking about this. So I hope and pray that this encourages someone. All is well.
All is well. And we still love men very much. They are beautiful. So it's like we haven't given up on them. It's not like, we just gonna be
I have my moments. I'd be like, I'm just giving up on love. I have
moments,
yeah.
But it's not, it's not.
But that's not my heart desire. It just is exhausting sometimes. Exactly. It's like, will the cycle drama ever end? But
because that's the reality of it. That's the reality of the process and the moments when you feel like, man, forget all of this. But they're beautiful.
They are.
They smell good when they got
the and you know, I have a strong affinity for silver foxes.
Right?
Yeah, let me tell you.
Single fathers?
Huh?
Single fathers?
Silver.
Okay. Silver foxes. Okay. I said single fathers.
No. I mean, I do single fathers too, but you know, silver foxes, honey, like, you know, that is my thing. I mean, but even if you don't, I'm fine with it. But it's
So what we're trying to say is we love y'all anyway.
We do. Yes, we do. We're not giving up on love. We're not giving up on hope. On finding, you know, the love that you desire. And we don't want you to do it neither, because life is meant to be lived.
It's meant to be lived, and we're meant to love. Like, we're not meant to just cut ourselves off from love. That is unnatural. We're not that way.
And there's so much in life to enjoy, you know, like it's just life goes on, baby girl.
It really does. I love that. What happened in one situation stop you from living? Like, don't give that person that much power over your life.
Yes, right, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And then they done been moved on, and you sitting over there crying and sad. Look, I'm guilty of that. I'd be like, oh my God, you know, and it happens to everybody. Like, I posted on, you know, I'm like, as you know, I know I'm a pretty girl and all that, but you still have moments where it's like, hey, I'm not good enough. You know, nobody don't want me. Blah blah blah. Nobody approaching me, so you know we all go through it. No one's exempt.
Absolutely. I definitely thought the same thing. Just that, you know, I'm not good enough. That resonated in my mind for a long time. I'm not good enough. I'm not chosen. You know, I haven't been chosen. What's wrong with me? I must be tarnished. Like all of cross. But honey, let me tell you what. When you understand who you are and your power and what you have and whose you are, baby, you sit up differently. You walk and talk differently.
Period.
Well, thank you so much. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for your comments and your questions and just making this an interactive discussion. We truly appreciate it. And we hope that you did get some value out of this and that it was helpful for you. And if nothing else, just to look at your situation, if you've been here, just to look at it differently.
Hi, this is Patrice. First, I want to just tell you thank you so much for even wanting to share with your congregation the information that I have shared about my divorce and life after divorce. And I'm also honored that you have follow-up questions for me pertaining to my marriage and my divorce. So I figured it'd just be easier for me just to do a video versus me typing it up, and you could take pieces of the information and share as you will. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am on Instagram. Siobhan knows my number. I'm also on Facebook, so I wouldn't be uncomfortable with you reaching out to me. So Siobhan did send me the questions your follow-up questions, and I am about to answer them. So just to give you a little bit of backstory, my ex-husband and I were legally married for about 10 years. We got married in our 20s. We got married in 2007. Then we purchased a home, and then we had 2 boys. Our first son, things were good. And then after he was born, things just started to slightly shift, as I mentioned in the video. You asked the question, were we trying to reconcile after when my second son was conceived? And the answer to that question is yes, we were reconciling. We had agreed that we were going to work things out, and I was under the impression that things were over between him and the other woman. And ironically enough, when I found out I was pregnant, we were in the midst of considering whether or not we were going to split up again. We had a heated argument, and he questioned whether or not I would keep our son? And I'm like, yes, I'm keeping our son. We both wanted him. So that's just to give you some background as to how crazy things were between the two of us. We both always said that we wanted a family. So we were trying to reconcile. It didn't just happen. It was something that we had talked about and agreed upon. But when we had got into that heated argument and got into that rough patch again, I had completely forgot. It seemed like that we had been trying. The final straw. So the final straw for me came after about 2.5 years of just really, really trying to work things out with him. I don't know if you're familiar with the conference with Family Life called A Weekend to Remember. I remember one summer we went to the Weekend to Remember conference. And that was really like my last ditch effort. We had gone to 2 or 3 different counselors, people at the church was trying to intervene. And it was exhausting. So we went to the Weekend to Remember. And if you're not familiar with the Weekend to Remember, it's a conference with Family Life. They do a whole... It's basically like a marriage retreat for a whole weekend. You go to a hotel. They have speakers all day, breakout groups. And it's supposed to be a time for marriages to rejuvenate or to recalibrate or to hopefully a last-ditch effort to work things out. And I kind of knew after we left that conference that things were done. We were done. Even though I was still fasting and praying and hoping, I knew based on things that transpired on that trip, we were over. We were over. I won't say that he wasn't trying to reconcile, but he wasn't really giving his best effort to reconcile. I really tried. I really, really tried. I tried all that I could to the point that I feel no remorse, no regret, because I gave it my all. I gave it my all. He has since remarried. I do believe that there's a level of guilt from him. He's even told me, we've talked about it before, that he regrets the divorce. Not necessarily because of me, he said, but because of our kids. But I don't regret it. I don't regret. I was the one that ultimately filed for the divorce because I knew. And months later, after our divorce was final, or maybe less than a year later, he married her. So the advice or my conversations with people that are on the verge of divorce or thinking about divorce, when you go into marriage, it is supposed to be forever. You fight. There's so many things up against your marriage, especially Christian marriages. You fight to the bitter end. You give it your all so that if you have to walk away, and I hope it's sad when you do, there's no regret. You could look God in the face if you ever get that opportunity, your children, your family, you know that you gave it your all. So I hope that answers your questions, give you a little bit of backstory. Once again, I'm honored that you're even sharing the information that I've presented with my friend Siobhan. I'm honored that she even asked me to present it as well. So I'm humbled. I'm honored. And if you need anything else or if you have any other follow-up questions, please, please, please don't hesitate to call me.